Community Services Industry Alliance is a small non-for-profit organisation. We were established in 2014, so we're just coming up for our 10-year anniversary. Primarily our role is to build the sector. We do that by collaborating with government and our industry partners to build a sustainable workforce. My role is Operations Manager. I oversee all the core business services in the organisation, so that's IT, HR, workplace health and safety, policies and procedures, so my role crosses over all facets of the organisation. So at the time we were looking for a framework to embed. We were at that point in our maturity of the organisation that we needed some kind of framework, and then obviously COVID happened, so that exacerbated that need. We were very conscious of people's wellbeing and mental health while they worked from home. I came across the People at Work framework during some webinars, I believe is where I found it, and it just seemed like it would be a good fit for our organisation. Initially I did a research into how the framework worked. Obviously it was free and it was run by government, so it gave the credibility that we were looking for, so that was an easy sell to our staff in terms of where the framework come from and the kind of questions that were being asked. It wasn't that the questions were biased in any way. We hadn't created them. They were set questions. They were benchmarked against industry, which was brilliant for our first one, so we could have a look at where we were going to sit. And so it's just a case of communicating with staff that this is what we were looking at. We're small, so we were 20 staff at the time, so we were just on the cusp of the minimum numbers, so it was quite easy to bring it up in conversations every time we had our weekly check-in to make sure staff knew where we were leading and why we were doing it, so that initially when we first emailed out the survey they were prepared for it. Not really too many challenges for us. The process was very straightforward. It's an easy framework to follow. It has a cycle, it keeps you accountable and keeps us flowing. Obviously, at the time, we only had 20 staff, so we were on the minimum threshold for numbers, so we needed the 100% commitment from staff, so it was a case of communicating that with staff so that they could understand, and then they were able to answer the questions so that we could get the correct results. Having the structure there for us to follow, having a process that we could review and implement and keep us on, keep us accountable for everybody's well-being. Yeah, I suppose it was a nice, easy process to follow, and it was something that staff could understand, and we could offer feedback straight after and follow up with different activities. For us, the results were that we had a high work demand, but we also had high resources available, so that's good. We looked at the results. We were pretty even across the board. There was nothing stand out for us, but it just benchmarks you against the industry, so you're able to see where you sit. Obviously, once you've done a second one, and I've rolled out a second one now after the 18 months, so now we can compare against ourselves, but at the time we were comparing against industry. But it gave us some ideas of what we were doing well as an organisation, and that generally we were coping quite well. Yeah, for us it was great. As I say, it brought that conversation out. Everybody was talking about mental health at the time, and then we got onto the subject of burnout, which is obviously a lot to do with that. We ended up having some staff lunchbox chats, so I hosted 3 different lunchbox chats where we didn't have any management team there. It was just staff, anybody could come along. It provoked a conversation about what are the stress factors in our roles, what kind of triggers are there for burnout, and we got some amazing feedback from staff. They were very open, and it was just great to have those conversations, and we documented all the different ideas that people came up with about changing their role or different methods that we could implement. We came out with simple ideas of maybe putting a signature block in to say, my email, my work hours are not your work hours, and so you don't feel obliged to respond. So just little things like that just build up a picture, and everybody's different and everybody's got different needs. So we wanted to understand what was the trigger points for people and how we could try and help them in their role. In our work, it's a lot of project work. So one of the triggers was that when we finish a large project, it kind of ends and then a new project starts, and people don't have the time to debrief and kind of celebrate the work that they've done. So we wanted to make sure that we could feed little things like that into their role. So at the beginning of a project, when we're project planning, we can make sure that we've fed in the time needed to be able to just pause and reset and recalibrate before you start a new piece of work. Yeah, we're very open and transparent about talking about mental health in our organisation now. I think it's broken that stigma down. Enables the staff to feel comfortable and safe to go to somebody. We tried to set up a buddy system where staff could talk to somebody that they felt comfortable with if they weren't able to talk to their immediate line manager. So I think it's just broken down that whole mental health stigma and it's become a bit of a norm for us. And I've actually run the People at Work survey again this year, so we've just come round to our 18-month cycle. So we've done it again, so now we're able to benchmark against ourselves, which is also good. So having that conversation constantly flowing has just made it so much easier for staff to feel comfortable in themselves to be able to talk about their mental health in the workplace. Definitely have a go. You know, you have to start somewhere. This framework is a great framework. It's very simple to follow. It's benchmarked against industry so that you've got that kind of gauge to start with before you can build up your own data from internally. Communicate with staff, explain to them why you're doing it and the reasons behind it. Is to help their mental health, help them out in their roles so that they're more, their productivity is higher. But definitely communicate with all your different teams. We're small, so it was easier for us because, everybody was together. But if you've got a large team, I think it's definitely a great tool to start with and a good communicator. And even if, one team does it and another team doesn't, it's a good start on that journey. I think sometimes it can seem overwhelming when you haven't got anything in place. It did for us. We were starting off with no kind of framework. And this is a great framework to kick you off to kind of veer off into whatever direction. I think communication is key. Make sure that obviously your leaders are involved and everybody knows why you're doing it and it's for the health of the staff, it's just not a tick box exercise. So I would recommend everybody make small changes. It's not massive changes that you need to make, it's just small ones. So I think the main aim is to have a go and talk and communicate and find out what it is your staff want, and then everybody's different, everybody's needs are different, and you can tailor it to whatever you need.